Hi everyone, I'm Nikki Baxley at Nikki Hearts Cards, and I am here today with three projects. We're going to look at some clear embossing techniques and get that clear embossing out of your cabinet and get to using it because it has so many different ways that we can create some amazing projects. So we're going to look at three different projects, how I used the clear embossing powder, and what a drastic difference it can make in different situations. So we'll get right into it. We're going to start with ink blending a rainbow. And since the main part of the video is not about ink blending, I'm going to speed parts of this up just to kind of show you the progression of the ink blending and then what I'm going to do to that ink blending once it's finished. So I'm creating this long, elaborate ink blended background, and I'm using blue, yellow, and a pink so that they will kind of all combine together and create a beautiful rainbow. Now, I've spent tons of time on this background. I'm ink blending it perfectly, and you could go with that and just leave it. These are Catherine Pooler inks, which stay wet a little bit longer than other things. So you really do need to be kind of careful with your background so that you don't smudge any areas. And I love a really crisp background. So what I decided to do is once I get my full rainbow done, I'm going to go in with the Wow embossing pad, and I'm going to keep the stamp here on my Misty so that I don't have to move anything. And I will add that clear embossing ink on top of what I've already ink blended. Then I can do clear heat embossing. So we've got lots of options. I'm going to speed up to that point so you can see how I do it. But in that, once I've done that, that protects my extremely hard work here that I've done for this background. It keeps it from smudging, and it gives it that nice, beautiful, clear gloss look that looks amazing. Okay, here is where having some kind of stamp positioning tool is really helpful. I can leave the stamp here and I can use my cloth, clean off all the color, and then I can add my Wow embossing ink. Okay, so I'll make sure you see me touching it with my hands. I'm making sure that the stamp is actually dry because if you smudge it with water, you're going to defeat the purpose of doing your clear heat embossing. So I'm going to go do my embossing now. And you could go ahead and run an anti-static powder tool over your ink, but I knew that most of my background was covered, and so I just went without powdering it, and it did fine. Now, with such a large area that we're wanting to get the clear embossing on, I really suggest making sure you've got that stamp nice and juicy with your ink and also have put enough pressure on it. So this right here is on a sticky mat. So I've got to get the piece of paper off the sticky mat, and then we're going to add our clear embossing powder. Now, I know that I stamped all the way to the edge, so I'm going to be using some tweezers to hold on to my paper so that I can get it embossed all the way around. You could just do this on a bigger piece of paper and it would give you a little bit more freedom to hold on, but I did not think that far in advance, and so here we go. So I'm going to use a coffee filter with a big piece like this. It probably is better to use like a piece of copy paper or something, but I've gotten used to using coffee filters for most all of my embossing powder, so I don't mind making a little bit of a mess and if I miss that area at all. But usually I can do this in sections and be just fine. So I'm adding my clear embossing powder right now, and then we're going to heat it up, and I'm going to show you how awesome this looks. When you're doing a large area of embossing like this, I don't want you to underestimate, like, once you've put it on there, flick the back of this. That is how I got away with not using the anti-static powder on this piece, because really a lot of the pieces are going to come off if you just flick the back really hard. And so I was immediately ready to go ahead and start heating. Now, when you're heating a piece like this, you do have to be careful of your hands. And so I'm going to try to get an area done and then be able to hold on to that. But I'm also moving carefully around this to make sure that I get all of it taken care of, because if you don't heat up every piece, it's not going to turn that bright glossy color that you want. So when you're looking at your final piece, I know it's hard to tell in a video, but if you see any dull areas, make sure you add a little bit more heat to get that nice glossy look on your embossing powder. Okay, look at this up close. It looks so good. I'll move it around a little bit here for you so hopefully you can see that shine and just how beautiful this rainbow looks. So let me show you a final picture of this card and then I'm going to show you another technique. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love how it came out. So we're going to take that same background stamp and we're going to try using clear embossing powder in a different way to get a very different look. This time, we're going to use clear heat embossing on a black background. And it is such a cool looking background. I just really love how this turns out. So let me show you a few tips on using clear embossing on black paper. We're going to take that exact same red rubber stamp. I'm going to use it in my Misty stamping tool again. The key with dark backgrounds is you've got to make sure you don't have any of that excess embossing powder sticking to places where it's not supposed to because it's going to look like a matte plus a gloss. And if the gloss is in the wrong place, it's going to cause all kinds of trouble. And I know that some people, it creates anxiety putting all this powder on a dark piece of paper, but I promise you that powder is made to come off. So really lather it up. I'm using a embossing powder tool and I'm covering the paper completely because we're going to stamp this whole background. Then I'm going to place this piece on a sticky layer here so that it'll hold on to it. And then we're going to stamp with clear embossing ink. So usually with my embossing powder ink that I'm going to be using here, I don't need to stamp more than once, but because this is such a large stamp, sometimes it's hard to get everything pressed down the first time. So I'm going to do this twice to make sure I've got all of the areas covered. So you see me really inking things up, and then we're going to put it down on here and do it one more time. I'm already excited just seeing that, and you could just leave this as embossing ink if you wanted to. You're just gonna have to give it some time to dry, and it'll still leave a nice impression in that black, but I'm gonna use the embossing powder, and don't let it scare you. This is clear embossing powder, but on black, when before it's heated, it's gonna show up kind of white, and that really does help because you can see if you've got it somewhere that it should not be. So like I said, most of this is covered anyway, so it will be pretty easy to see, but you can always take a little brush or something and work on getting any areas off that need to come off. So once you finish heat embossing, we're going to need to remove the powder to make this a crisp, beautiful black background. Super easy to do. You can use some kind of dusting cloth. This is a microfiber cloth, which doesn't have any lint, so it helps me get all that powder off of it. And I just use one that I picked up at the store. So let's look at the final card and how bold and amazing this background is. I just love how that looks with something bright on it. It just completely changes the background versus being a solid black. Look at how beautiful. I just love how it turned out. I'm going to show you one other option that you might not have thought about, and we'll make one more quick card. Here's the official photo of this one. I just love how this looks. I really love taking a navy or a black background and making an amazing card. So now here's something that I hadn't really thought of until I was playing with this background stamp. I decided to go clear on white. And yes, it's going to be subtle, but it kind of gives the effect of using an embossing folder or something in the background. It's just enough detail that it really makes the card very special. Now you can start to see when I get some powder on here so that you can see the pattern because it's really hard to see clear ink on white, but you'll see as this comes off that there is a pattern and it's going to be beautiful on the background. I'm going to show you some different pictures and I'm going to show you this compared to the black piece that we did as well. So here's how that white piece looks. It's subtle, but it's so beautiful behind an amazing backdrop. And I just think it's a great way to use the clear. Here's the difference in the two. Of course, you can see the black a little easier, but here's what I put on this card. And I'm going to kind of go slow and show you in different lights. So hopefully you can see that background. If you can't see it great in these lights, just wait till the official photo. I was able to enhance the photo so that it's easier to see versus here on the camera. So let's go to that photo and look at this card. Do you see that subtle background? It just looks so nice. I can't even believe it. I hope that you enjoyed this. Here's the other 2 cards that we've worked on so you can see the final. It's just such a different look, but still just so amazing each way that we used it. Make sure that if you haven't done it yet, that you hit the like and subscribe on this video, and I will see you soon. Have a great day. Bye.